Hey, all my YouTubers. This is Rip Fletching. Let me come around here. I'm doing a video by myself tonight, so my wife's already gone to bed. And I had a request on one of my videos to show you how I set up my bows and kind of why. And that's pretty hard to do because it's very complex. There are lots of different bows, lots of different purposes. I mean, a hunting scenario, is it for flight shooting, is it for 3D? It's all different. So what I thought I would do is some of the basics. Basically how you tune a bow and why and what you look for. And then just basically how I set up a couple of different bows and off the shelf. Well, both of these are going to be off the shelf. This one with a little twist. But first thing I thought what I'd want to go over is how I tune my bow. I made a little chart here. So this is going to be on, this chart I made up will be for bare shaft tuning on it for a right-handed person. Now anything I show you on here for a left-handed person would have obviously just be opposite of that for the right and left. Up and down would be the same. So, get a little closer so you can see this. Hopefully this will all be in focus when the videos are made. So, I know this, I just wrote this out with a big O Sharpie, so it's hard to read, but for a right-handed bare shaft, and this is a bare shaft, no fletching at all. And I always suggest using a full-length shaft. Do not cut your shaft, shoot it full length. There's numerous reasons why I shoot a full-length shaft. One is they shoot better. They aim better. There's so much. You know, it makes your FOC, your front of center, much easier to achieve. And I know that sounds crazy, but it isn't if you really think about it. The longer that shaft is, the easier it is to get FOC. I've just had a lot better luck with long arrows. All right. So I guess basically you could start with some of the spine charts, some of the recommendations that's been put down for years. On the spine charts, if you're shooting, say, a 50-pound traditional bow, look and see what it says for the draw length and the tip weight and so forth. Now, for a 50-pound traditional bow, your average arrow shaft is going to be somewhere between a 500 and a 400. 500 is more flexible. This is a 500. Something that I would shoot for 3D, just trying to get it really light, really fast. And a 400 would be more toward the hunting. I actually shoot all the way up to a 250, which is for a very, very heavy bow, you know, like a 90-pound bow. And I'll shoot that off of even a 42-pound bow, but I'll tune for it and just shoot lights out with it. So a lot into that. We're not going to get that deep into it, but let me go over some of the basics. All right, for bare shaft tuning, so you have to have a piece of paper set up. I'll get it clear. No, I'll use this one. So let's say this piece of paper is mounted so it doesn't move when you shoot it. And you're going to shoot this shaft with no fletch on it at all into the paper at 6 feet. Let's just start with at 6 feet. And it hits the paper. And let's say it tears your entry point and the knock goes up and it tears a slit up like this. So it goes in the paper and then up like this and it tears the paper. So now, traditionally what you would think is it is setting knock high. So I'll show you what I mean by that. Hit the chandelier. So that would be where your knock is too high up this way. So it comes off the arrow flying knock high. Okay? Very common. Then the way you would correct that would be bring your nock point down the shaft, and you shoot it again until you're hitting that bullseye, until that flattens that tear out. I'll show you what that'll look like. But let's say you made a correction. So you brought it way down. You're like, oh my goodness, that's really tearing. And you bring that down and you shoot it again. Oh, here's something else I do. So when you're tuning, people do it different ways. I tie on a nock point. Simple people use the little brass ones that you can crimp on. They're really good for tuning a bow because you can slide them up and down. I actually tie on a knot, but I don't tighten it so that I can move it before I finish it off. But either way, whatever's easier for you. So let's say you've pulled your nock point down, you've drawn back, you've gone through, you've shot 2 or 3 times. Don't shoot once, shoot a few times. Make sure you're duplicating the same tear. Okay, so now you're looking and the tear is down this way. So that would mean nock low. So your nock point is too low and your arrow's flying with the head up. Now, I know that seems pretty simple, but it isn't always what you think. So sometimes a nock high, so it's tearing with the nock up, isn't from your arrow being too high. It's from it being too low. So this is where it gets kind of sophisticated. So what can happen is if you have it too low and your arrow's coming off here, what does it do? But it hits your shelf and then it kicks up like this. So if it's too low, it's zipping through here, it hits your arrow shaft, kicks it up like that, and then it's flying through the air like if it had come off the bow nock high, but it's really nock low. So that's why it takes a little bit of moving up and down to get it adjusted just right. And the same thing in reverse. If it's showing nock low, you want to make sure that that's actually what is occurring. So that's what's nice about moving that nock up and down. And there are some basic places you start from. The internet's full of that. For each bow, your manufacturer, they typically will have a suggested brace height or a suggested place, and it depends on if you're shoot 3 fingers under, split fingers, string walking, a lot of things like that. So it's a good place to start is just a little bit above center. So put your arrow on there, move it up a little bit, and start from there. I'm not, everyone's shooting style is so different. I'm not going to give you a measurement because if I give you my measurement, it's going to be off for you probably. All right. So now let's say you only mess with one direction at a time. Don't worry about right and left. We're just going up, down right now. Or you can just do right, left, but really simplify it. Don't do up, down, right, left. Just up or down, or just right and left. So let's say now you shoot it and it's a bullet hole. Perfect, that's great. That's what you're wanting. Okay, it's probably not gonna happen just snap of the finger. Me, yes, because I know exactly what length arrow, at what spine, and at what tip weight, at what poundage bow to get that, because I've been doing it for years. You'll need to go through this process. Okay, so now you shoot the paper and you get where the tail is to the right. It tears for your bullet hole and then tears this away. Now that's typically an indication that your arrow shaft is too stiff. And if you remember, I like a long arrow shaft. I like long arrows. So instead of cutting your arrow, I'm not big on that. If it's too soft, or try to find an arrow shaft that you can leave full length, tune it to where it works for you at full length, okay? So let's say it's too stiff. Now, there's a few different ways to do this, but we're gonna try to keep it simple. First thing typically you would do is increase your tip, the grains of the tip of your arrow. So you can increase the weight of your broadhead or your filled tip, or do a weighted insert like a brass or stainless steel insert, this is going to be the best option. Because once you figure out exactly where it needs to be, it's going to be that way for every one of your arrows. Because I strongly recommend, once you have tuned a particular arrow length, grain, weights, all of that, you're done. They all need to be exactly the same, okay? So increase that tip weight and it will soften the spine, the dynamics of that spine. Or you just go to a softer spine, okay? So now let's say you shoot it and the tail is to your left, like this. Now that's an indicator that it's too soft. So like if I were to shoot this 500 in my 60-pound recurve, it would do this. It would show that it's too soft. So there's two things I could do. I could decrease my tip weight, which I really don't like to do that because you know what broadhead you shoot. So you need to have this standardized. So I could cut the shaft. That would make it stiffer. But there again, we're trying to avoid that. So what you would do is, so if this is a 500 spine and it was showing soft, we would want to move to a 400 spine, duplicate the test and get it where it needs to be. Now, the one thing you've probably noticed on this arrow and a lot of my arrows, and it makes up for a lot of these tuning issues, are the turbo knocks. They are great and they really cover a multitude of sin. So this would be your typical knock. Hopefully that's showing. And you notice it's just a flat, straight cut knock, okay? So any rotation off that bow is going to be very minimal. The arrow's going to have to proceed forward. Then the air drag will occur on the fletchings and it will slowly rotate. It takes a while to occur. Now, if you shoot the turbo knock, it spins your arrow at about 9,000. I know that's crazy. About 9,000 RPMs. So it takes a lot of this wobble out of your arrow because it's spinning it like a rifle and it's going straight. All that energy is going straight down field. Amazing penetration. Phenomenal. Give them a try. I'm not selling turbo knock, so I'm just telling you, you can get pretty close with these. Put a turbo knock on, and you're amazing. You look like a pro. All right, now I'm going to show you a couple of the setups this is just two of my bows, but a couple of the setups I'm shooting. And don't pay no attention to the brace height on this bow. This is me playing around, trying to make a little hot rod with some really short limbs and low brace height and just playing. All right, so on this one is just felt. Okay, I made this felt from buffalo. It's a wild buffalo. I took the fur, felted it, and made pad for my bow. Now, the thing, you'll see people, they'll have leather plate on the face or leather down here, and it's all right. Or they'll have a piece of skin there with fur, whatever. That's all great. If you're a master at tuning your bow and you have a perfect shot, perfect release, you can get by with that. Everything's not going to be perfect in this world. And the softer the material you use here, the more forgiving it is. When I used to shoot a lot of 3D competitions, my chair may fell out from under me. The one thing I would notice, if my shots started to get erratical in my target, like I may shoot high, low, right, left, if it just started getting erratical, like, man, I need to really focus more, the first thing I would look for is to make sure my pad wasn't wore out on my bow shelf, because the minute it starts to get wore out, I noticed my groups would fall apart, because it's such a harsh surface that if it hits it, it deflects it, okay? So I'll show you what I do here, and sometimes I use Velcro. Now this particular one is shot off the shelf with a plunger. So yeah, I love plungers. I shoot them a lot. Arvid at Black Swan got me shooting these for 3D. This also forgives a lot of sins in shooting. It softens us up. It helps those arrows to come off really nice. If you're going to compete, I use them for hunting too. They're great, all right? Now, I do use Velcro. I know it's cheap. It doesn't last a long time, but it is cheap, and I can replace it cheaply. And I like how silent it is. So when I'm in a tree stand and I bump my arrow on here, there's no sound. Okay, so I use Velcro a lot on my bows because it's cheap. I can replace it if it starts to wear out, and I replace mine pretty often. So that's the point I'm trying to get across, is the minute this Velcro starts to wear thin and this fuzz starts to wear out, it gets, your shots become a lot more critical. So replace that Velcro. Now there's one other thing I'll show you I do to make it even more forgiving, is under this layer of Velcro, I have a thin slice of Velcro that's put in like this, okay? I lay it in there and stick it down. It's very thin, about the width of a matchstick between it and a toothpick, so very thin. And I do it directly where the plunger is going to be, or slightly behind or towards you of the plunger, okay? Where your grip is. And there's a reason for this. It makes a high point. Plus, that's where most of the shock is going to be, and so it makes it extra cushiony in case I get a bad release and the butt of that arrow wants to slam against my shelf. It's going to take a lot of that. It's going to cushion it like a shock absorber, like Fox shocks on a off-road vehicle. Okay, so that's my setup here. Now, and I know I've still got these on here that I don't shoot these. Like I told you, I was playing around with this. My string silencers. I make my own, and I use wool. I love wool silencers. I know you guys that live down south, they do get rained on. But you know what? When you let go of that arrow, the water's back there, the string and arrow goes forward. Just not a problem. I just don't feel like it's a problem. I've had great success with it. String silencers, I do use the Nerds from Black Swan. I shoot Black Swan Bose, so I shoot their products. They do have a short life expectancy because they're soft. I'm a factory shooter. I'll be, straight up. You guys know that. I don't pay for these, so I replace them. They are very quiet though. Part of what you get when you have a short lifespan is because it's quiet and because it's soft. All right. Let's see if I missed anything that we were going to discuss. Plate. The brace height. So typically on brace height, and I was going to bring a ruler in here and show you guys, every manufacturer will have a suggested brace height. Now, you don't gain a lot of speed by altering the brace height from what the manufacturer has designed that bow to be at. It's minuscule. It's not worth it. What you want is the best shooting and the quietest bow. So what you want to do is, first thing is measure out your bow to where you have the proper brace height. And there's two ways to do this. Now, some bow manufacturers will measure from between the limb bolts to the string, and they'll do that on both sides, and that's your brace height. Some bow manufacturers will measure from the deepest part of the grip to the string, and that's what I typically like to do, because a lot of bows are designed where they'll be a little different between here and here, because designed for 3 under or one over shooters. Now, I measure from here to here. The Black Swan bows typically are designed for about 7.5 to 8 or 7 3/4. This one's set at about 8. And that's a static recurve. Typically, I'm about 7 3/4 is perfect. If it starts getting to 7.5, I start to notice a little twanginess. You wouldn't notice it unless you've shot them for years. But somewhere right in there is just perfect for the Black Swan. About 7.5 to 7 3/4 inch brace height. Now, will that be perfect for your bow and the brand you shoot? No. Get the manufacturer, tune your arrow like I'm showing you, start shooting it. And don't just go, well, it's shooting great, fine. And there are tuning ways. There's so many ways to tune a bow, with your plunger, with the plates, how soft they are, with your brace height. But the fact is, I do not like to tune a bow with brace height because it has a sweet spot. You want to find your bow's sweet spot and leave it there. Remember, write it down, whatever the brace height, what shoots the best for your bow. So like this one, say it's 8 inches, whatever. You want that. If you have to write it on your bow, write it down. That is the sweet spot for that particular bow. And it may be the same brand. Oh, for a good example, this one. I'm putting this little hot rod together just for fun. And there's no way I could get an 8-inch brace height out of here. This thing it'd be way out here at 8 inch. So you see this. Now, but this is not a great shooting setup. I just did this for fun, but for an example of a different brace height. So what you would want to do is just adjust this out until that bow shoots very quiet, very accurate, very consistent, and it should be near where the manufacturer said, and that's how you get your brace height. All right, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know it wasn't me shooting and standing on my head and killing animals and all that stuff, but I'm hoping this was informative. You know, another thing I always do, you guys said, tell me what all you do. I put limb protectors on my bow, the bottom limb, because that limb is going to be in contact with the dirt, with the ground, whatever. And if you don't have one, and like this one, I was just playing around with some different stuff, so I'll show you what I did. I took a piece of Velcro and just wrapped the limb just to protect it for stringing, unstringing, standing around. If I put it on the ground, just something to protect your bow. These are expensive bows, protect them. All right, if you have any questions, comment below, like and share. Follow me on YouTube, on Facebook, hit the little bell. All right, guys, I appreciate you a whole lot. Ask anything you like. I'll answer it if I can. If I don't know, I'll sure let you know. We'll find out together. All right, have a great night.